I'm Andrew. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of TechHub in London. For the last 15 years, I've been working with major corporates, and for the last 10, that's been at TechHub, where we support early stage right through to late stage technology entrepreneurs. And at TechHub, I've been looking after our international expansion, as well as our partnerships with major organizations, the likes of Google, BT, Aviva, and others. In terms of tips from the last decade of working particularly with innovation and procurement leads in major global corporates, I think the first lesson learned is how much longer it takes to get deals signed, to get pilots done, and that sort of thing than most people expect. It's very rare for anybody to ever meet a corporate, have a trial done, and actually have contracts in place in less than a year. We've frequently seen that take 2 or 3 years, which for a startup is a long time. And I think there's a different speed at which executives in corporates work to the expectation of startup land. I think that's one of the biggest challenges. So first tip is to plan ahead for how long it takes to get through that sort of process. A second tip is really just to make sure that you are talking to the right people, the budget holders within those organizations, the people who actually can buy the product, talking to the main thing that kills corporate and startup relationships, or one of the big things that kills startups as a whole is the long no or the long maybe, or talking to the wrong people in those organizations. It's very common for people to talk to people who love to buy into a product, but they don't actually have the budget, the buy-in internally to be able to get support. They'll often take a trial, they'll often go through a process of engaging with you on it, but when it actually comes to the crunch point of handing over the cash, it's very difficult. One of the ways to get through that is to make sure the organizations that you're talking to pay you for a trial. There is a obviously product dependent price, but there's it's very common for sort of a £50,000 type amount of money, which is just enough to contribute back into the startup. It's the kind of money that people pay for pilots. Obviously, if these are more labor intensive, that can vary, but that gives you a rough idea on the type of money that people pay for those things. It's obviously very important to protect your IP. There's a few horror stories from the past of people buying into trials and things with startups, then going off and realizing that they can build the products themselves, or buying another version of that product that you've put so much time and effort into. And remember, large organizations don't have guilt. So there is no, oh, I won't buy that product from them and move on to somebody else. And that causes challenges as well. So make sure you're protecting IP for what you're doing, working with those big companies. The real reason behind that, which is worth touching on briefly, is that large organizations are very fearful of buying from organizations that they don't have a guarantee that will exist long term. So sometimes they end up building their own product because they realize buying from you and not knowing whether you'll actually survive long term is very, very risky for them. And people in large organizations tend to be more worried about their own job than supporting and looking after you. It's a very common fear factor, and so people don't want to put themselves on the line. So there's often decisions, and particularly where money is involved, very long-term views played by people internally, and so they want to look after their roles themselves. So decisions are made by committee where lots of people are fed in. So you need huge amounts of internal buying, which is time consuming. The big challenge around that, which we've experienced a lot, is where you have change of executive as well. The joke is a half-life of a CEO is 3.5 years in a big organization. And it's often the case that can be the same. So if you've spent a long time going through a trial, getting people to buy into a product, and then your main advocate within an organization leaves, that of course is really could end up with you starting again, which is a challenge. So if another tip would be to make sure that you're building relationships and rapport whilst you need an internal advocate with other people in an organization, just to make sure that you get votes once it comes to making a decision internally as to whether to buy into your product or not. That's it, really. So I think that in short, it takes a very long time to do deals with corporates. So plan that into your spending, the way that the conversations that you're having. Make corporates pay for a trial. Don't have a couple of deals lined up expecting those to go through. Just keep going, keep focusing on more sales. There may be, and is very, very painful for startups. And make sure you're talking to the right people who have a budget and can actually buy into what you're doing.